Hi everyone, Jenny from World Divination, and I have got something so sweet here. I'm going to be giving a chat with Toni. I've nailed her down in order to be talking about her new deck, the Four Selves Oracle, written by Toni and the artwork created by Carrie Paris. This is a phenomenal deck that really dives into shadow work and understanding self in ways that we might not actually anticipate, shall we say. So, Toni, do you want to say a bit about yourself first?
Hi everyone, thank you, Jane. I am super excited about this deck, so excited. It's something that I work with myself every single day. You know me and how much this system of living, I wouldn't even call it a deck, the system of living means to me. So I was excited to work with Carrie, of course, with the artwork and see it finally come to life. But yeah, the Four Selves is something that I'm just really passionate about, people becoming whole again.
Well, when you think about actual shadow work, and this deck takes you through integrating those shadow aspects of self, understanding them, the dynamics and the actual flow of them, integrating the tableau style. Most people who do shadow work or have heard of shadow work, especially on a spiritual level, they'll look at like Jungian kind of frameworks, because Carl Jung obviously is the one who collected this framework for shadow work and an understanding self, looking at it from the ego, that personal kind of unconscious thoughts that's within ourselves, and the collective unconscious that we all experiences, that we all share throughout our lives, humanitarian kind of things. This deck moves away kind of from the Jungian archetypes, and actually is a standalone system within itself. So could you talk us through the processes with regards to the cards, etc., like that? What is it that is like stands out particularly with regards to anybody wanting to look at understanding the shadow more, and why they should approach it with this deck?
Well, as I said before, it's a system of living this rather than just a psychological tool. It is something where we can go as deep as we wish within ourselves, or we can use it on a daily basis just to be the best possible self that we can be. It's based upon the principles that we all have for selves: the emotional self, the conscious self, the physical self, and of course, the most important I find, the superconscious self, the self of us that is connected to the universe. So I don't want to say it's deeper, but it marries in the spiritual self into all these other physicalities of being human. It's adding that part of spirituality where we're not just looking at our faults. We're looking at our reactions and how we can temper our reactions, and also an understanding of how that affects our spirituality. Because if we aren't our best human selves, we don't have that connection to spirit that we would like to have. So you need an aspect of spirituality into the humanness of psychology, etc., to be able to understand the whole, understand who you are, understand why you react the way you do. And if you have cycles of patterns returning, you can get to the bottom of that, find out why that is, understand yourself on a whole different level.
So what was it that actually inspired you to create this deck? Because I know that this is something that you've worked on, or you've had as a kind of framework for yourself for a very long time. And, what was it that actually gave you that push to actually create this system?
In around 2012, I started working through the lens of my favorite teacher in the entire world, Dr. Stelzer. And he was marrying science, but also with spirituality. And he was teaching a core aspect of the Four Selves, albeit in a slightly different way to what I do. And I started living my life via the Four Selves, understanding myself a little bit deeper, understanding who I was as a kid as well, and then trying to get back into that world where I was free from everything, free from emotional reactions, free from conscious reactions. And the more I worked on myself, the more my view of the universe and all of us within it started to morph. And I'd been working with my version of the Four Self for about 6 years. And in 2017, I brought out my Kipper deck. But at the time, sorry, my Kipper book. But at the time, I sat down and I created this system, 2017. And I worked out all the aspects that I would want to see, plus what I'd want answers to as well. So I sat down and I worked it out as a system rather than as anything other than that. And as you know, when we moved to Northern Ireland, I had this piece of paper with all this layout of what it meant to me and what the cards should be. And I sat with it. It always sat with me at my work desk, and I didn't do anything about it because I had so many different projects on at the time, but I continued to live my life as per the Four Selves. And I actually don't know what that spark was one day. It caught my attention on my desk, and I just thought, right, this is the right time. It's time now. And that's when it started moving along.
What I can say is it's a big difference seeing it from, you know, that sheet of paper where you had it all gridded out and literally mapped. And that's kind of, it's exciting to actually see something more from that, what you've envisaged and how you've wrote it and kind of like work with it on that, to actually how it came about with regards to the cards. And the cards, in case for anybody that's interested, I mean, these are really, really beautiful. And they allow you to actually, as medium, I think they really allow you to scry as well. You can draw a lot from every single, you know, one of the images. I think Carrie's done a fantastic job with that. Is there anything, when you were actually envisaging these becoming in-card deck and actually incorporating them into that system, building that system, because these are the fundamental, these are the foundations of it, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
How did you actually come up with the concept then to how these cards, how they were going to fit together and how they were going to flow? What was it that actually kind of, what was your process, shall we say, of transitioning from that piece of paper into those cards and building that kind of fundamental foundation so that anybody that's really wanting to delve can actually really, you know, look quite easily at and understand, even with just the keyword meanings of you know, a picture overall, a snapshot of them themselves, but not only their shadow, but all of the things about them. And that's what I think's very different from most shadow work.
Well, when it's really practical, actually, for most people out there that know me, it will be practical because that's the way my brain works. But I am very strong on everybody being able to communicate with spirit. It's not something that's specific to mediums. It's not something that's specific to tarot readers. Every single person, whether they're walking to a shop in the morning, doing their washing, they should be able to have a clear conversation with spirit. But on top of that, they should be autonomous in their spirituality, in that they are in control of their spirit, they are in control of their humanness. So if, for example, you are somebody that struggles with certain situations in conflict, just as an example, you'll find that whenever a little situation turns up, there's huge feelings within you for it. So when I was creating the system, I was trying to practically, knowing everything I do about spiritual development, everything that I do about mediumship, and then add on. So each card incorporates a concept of that. And each card incorporates a concept of the four selves. For example, the rainbow card is about compartmentalizing. Can you understand what thoughts you have belong to you and which belong to others, which is just information? Why, we carry I think it's 350,000 mind moments we have a day. So all that information is just in your head. Think about social media, the emails you get in, just people talking around you, the noise of the birds. Every single piece that we hear, see, or anything is information. So the practical way to work with that, working with the four selves, is to work on the conscious mind, conscious self, which means we have to be able to distinguish whether it's information that we need to react to or whether it's just background noise, because the majority of our life is background noise. So each of the cards has a core concept within that you are working with on your own. So we have cards that relate to the conscious side, how we can compartmentalize things, how we can be in control of our thoughts. Then the emotions, what emotions are you identifying even what those emotions are? Or are you just free flowing through life and letting a reaction come out as it so wishes? So each card really asks a serious question of ourselves. And the serious question it's asking is, are you in control of your humanness? So we have cards that relate to ourselves, our conscious mind, our subconscious, the superconscious, etc., and the best ways of getting there, because each one is in itself a test. And then we have the shadow side. So I created a system in a form of a tableau where you have one side being the light side, of being ourselves, what we know about ourselves, and one side being that side that we don't like to talk about ourselves, or sometimes we don't even realize it's there. You may have trauma from being really, really young, for example, that you've blocked out or don't know, but it's impacting your life based on what emotional situation comes up for you. So the aspect, each single card is imperative to understand for the whole makeup of our human selves. And the more we understand that, the more we ask ourselves these questions when a thought arises, when an emotion arises, when a physical ailment arises. So the system kind of morphed out of all these questions that we ask ourselves on a spiritual journey, but also to feel whole, to feel capable humans that won't fly off the handle at every single little thing, or won't get upset about things in life.
One of the things that I actually really love, because you can use this deck in a multitude of ways, and you can put it down as a complete and utter tableau for you to actually just read yourself and everything about all aspects of self that incorporates you being you, and movement forwards, what's working for you, and how to kind of understand yourself in a way. But what I really love is, if you're pulling a single card for yourself, so say you pull a card for a daily, for example, what aspect am I going to be looking at or working on within myself? What am I going to be, dealing with? It's got mantras. So every single card comes with its own unique mantra, which you can actually integrate into your day if you actually need and reminding of, if you're facing these triggers, how to actually mantra yourself into neutrality to be able to actually incorporate the lessons of what each card brings. And I think that that's something that's really quite sacred, because it turns something that's, in something that's so large and broad scoped into something that's really personable and, you know, easily integrated. And it allows then for you to kind of utilize yourself in a different way as well, I suppose. The book itself, you've got 141 pages, and you take literally everybody from what the cards mean to how to integrate them together, and actually how to actually transition through a massive tableau. So when it comes to doing that, have you got any advice for people when they're starting out in using this deck? Because it's a completely new system that nobody's really, you know, got out there. There's nothing like this, as I feel. It totally changes from the psychological perspective, like I say, the Jungian theories and frameworks. It actually transitions away even from the likes of psychological therapies like CBT and DBT, and it integrates it in a much more gentler, spiritual way. So how would you suggest people start to begin with this deck? Because it's a massive concept.
I think the funny thing is that you say that it's gentle, and it's really nice that it's gentle, but the fundamental questions that the deck poses of ourselves, or the way that we work with the deck, goes much deeper than the comfortability that we are usually used to with an oracle deck. I wouldn't even call it an oracle, I would call it a system myself. But the fundamental aspect of the four selves is, I've mentioned that we have four selves and I've listed them. Well, how do they react within ourselves? There is an aspect of CBT in that we are looking at the conscious, we are looking at the subconscious or feelings, but we're also looking at behavior within it, like CBT does, and marrying that then in with the superconscious. But the key aspect of the four selves baseline information is that spiritual communication, or being your highest self and being open to all the information of the universe, is only available to us through our human selves. So the superconscious information, and I call everything information, so superconscious information that we want to be a part of and we want to feel a part of, can only communicate with us through our subconscious self, which is the emotional center. So if we have any emotions, whether it be positive or negative, excitement can affect us as much as negativity. If we have anything within our emotional center that then sets off a trigger or sets off a reaction within us, for example, we were talking about it the other night, you know, you hear a voice suddenly and it's like, ooh,
Yes.
it snaps you out of your superconscious state. So what we're trying to do is live in a superconscious state. It is not possible 24/7, but it's possible a large proportion of your day, which means you are guided by spirit at all times. So this information clicks into that emotional gut center where everyone says your intuition is. Well, yeah, your intuition is there, but your intuition is clouded if you have any human emotions in there. Once it's done the test at that emotional center, it hits the conscious mind and says, what do you think about it? And our conscious mind either says, you're making it up, Toni, this is rubbish, you're not hearing anything really. Or it tells you something negative, negative self-talk, negative talk about someone else, something flies in. Or excitement again in our thought, oh, this is great, we can do this. And then you're out of your superconscious state immediately. So you have to have the flow. You have to have the freedom of emotions, freedom of conscious, freedom of physical issues too, in order to have that superconscious state. So that's the fundamentals of the system. But you mentioned mantras, and I wanted to jump on that before I go full circle. The greatest gift we are given is having clear thoughts. The greatest gift we are given is having a clear mind and clear emotions. Now, what a mantra does is it's mindfulness. So it's allowing those mind moments, all those hundreds of thousands we have a day, it's allowing those to calm, to focus on one thing. So my mantra going forward is the Ho'oponopono, and that's what I started with in 2011. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And there's so much on the internet that is truly misunderstanding the core concepts of Ho'oponopono and that mantra. It's not about forgiving others in any way. It's about forgiving ourselves. I love you, spirit, the universe. I'm sorry. I forgot that I am a spiritual being. Please forgive me for that lapse and forgetting who I am. Thank you to the universe. So that allows you to calm all the thoughts down, calm the emotions down. It's a focus for your conscious mind, and anything that is setting off in your conscious mind, as soon as you start to calm that down, your emotions start to settle too, which then leaves you as an open channel and also that super conscious living being that we are. So how do you go about starting with the Four Selves Oracle? Well, my advice to you would be just choose a card to represent the work that you are going to do today on your conscious, on your subconscious, physical if you so wish, but also super conscious. It will bring up the issues that you are dealing with. So if you are confused in any way, you may get the vortex, for example, which is a connection of some description to the superconscious, but it's completely mixed up within us, within our human self. We may get void, and void is about living in a moment of nothingness, living in a moment of time between the time, where everything just flows. There are no thoughts there. There are no feelings there. You're in the void. You're in the superconscious living. So my advice would just be pull cards, find out what work you need in your emotions, what's going to help you through the day. And it is work. Honestly, it is work. It is asking you to do the work. I do the work on myself every single day. I know you do too. So if the whole world could physically work on themselves, I do believe we'd be in a much better place.
Well, I think it's really important. I feel that something like this is out there. And the reason for myself personally is that you look at a lot of people that's on that spiritual path, they're looking at their spiritual journey, they're looking at spiritual growth within themselves, but you can get swamped in a quagmire of what's what and how's and where's, and that, what you mentioned about that clear channel, sorry, that is something that is really imperative when it comes to you spiritually growing. It's really imperative when it comes to you actually growing as just a physical human as well, because the more clear that you are, the more you're able to pick up on, intuitive messages or connections from spirit. But also as well, the more clearly guided you are by your own inner compass and less by what's external around you. So it isn't just on a spiritual level. It is things that physical aspect into it. And I think that's why it's really, really fantastic that something like this is out there, so that anybody who's on any part of their spiritual journey will be able to actually look at it and actually gain insight into themselves. Because people look, I feel, a lot externally before they'll look internally, and that's usually because there's things that we don't like about ourselves. But that's an important part of your spiritual path, is accepting those things about you that you don't like, and changing them if you want them, and if not, well, you just need to accept, isn't it? But that's the biggest thing where people get those blocks within themselves. So I think something like this is absolutely incredible for people that's either just starting on the spiritual journey or actually wanting to really progress and understand themselves on a level that they might not have experienced before. The system, like say, you do it as a big tableau. Now, that in itself is an incredible, it's an incredible feat, shall we say. You've got a tableau. Well, I'll let you explain to me your tableau with regards to this Four Selves.
Well, with the tableau, we have a card to represent self, and we have a card to represent our shadow self. And we lay the cards around. Like I said before, the left-hand side of the tableau is all about what we know about ourselves and what we are probably already working upon. The shadow side shows a side that maybe we've not considered, or maybe it's something that's been within us for a while that we don't really want to bring to light. And I will add, it is not a deck where, yes, you will be going into darker parts of yourself, absolutely, but each card has that practicality about it that's not triggering in any way. So we're not wanting to trigger reactions. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We're working on those things without triggering those aspects of ourselves. So the tableau, when it's all laid out, we have conscious in there, so we can see what our conscious mind is doing. We can see what our subconscious is doing, both in the self and in the shadow self at the same time. And then we can see what effect that's having on our spiritual being, whether we are walking the path that we should be walking, whether we are listening to or are developing mediumship, or whether we're just lost in the humanness entirely. So it also gives you a kind of grade as to where you are on your spiritual path. How much further is there to go to reach that amazing superconscious state that you want to live in? But again, you can dial it back to those daily things as well, and look at those in the tableau. Look at the exercises, let's put it that way, the exercises you can do with yourself to actually release some of the emotional baggage you are carrying, release the conscious baggage and patterns, any patterns, even to a point of ancestral patterns or karmic patterns. So we can go as deep as we wish with a tableau, but we can also be practical with that tableau and say, right, okay, how am I going to be the best person that I can be today? No matter what comes up in my life, no matter who's shouting at me, who's wanting a piece of me, whatever's going on, how do I remain in that super conscious state? How do I be the best me I can be, and also give the best me to everybody else? Because I truly believe unless we work on ourselves, we can't be the best for other people either.
I agree with that. And as you know, I do different systems like OM and that, which starts with self. And I'm always drawn to systems that fundamentally require you to look within yourself, because by understanding yourself first and foremost, that's when you start making sense of everything around you and how everything affects and the way you actually flow externally too. So I think that that's really, it's something that's it's a really beautiful thing to be able to do. And I think that this deck really invites people in a different way to be able to do that. So finally then, I know you've said it, but I'll ask you, if you were to sum up a mantra for yourself, if you were to sum up this deck as a mantra, what would this mantra be for you to carry you through?
I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for giving me your time, because I know how in demand that you actually are, and it's hard work pinning you down for anything. But honestly, this is an incredible deck. You've done an incredible job with it, and so has Carrie with the actual artwork. It is phenomenal, and I wish you the best of luck with it, with everything. And everyone, if you are interested or you have not yet ordered your copy, it is available to pre-order now, and I would suggest everybody go out and order that Four Selves Oracle by Weiser Books.